Okay guys, thanks and welcome back to the channel. So this is video 5. We're tying a bow in this series with the conclusions that I came from all of what I just did. And by the way, very unhappy news for me. It looks like it's going to be late February before I have a boat. So I am bumming rides trying to find guys to fish with. It's just, look, in this market, as we are seeing here, it's not easy to sell a boat. And I put my boat up for sale. It sold really fast. I had multiple guys trying to buy the boat. I was thrilled to sell it, but it does sort of stink to not have a boat. But I also talked to a client today who owns RV parks who said he has a pond on his RV park over by Ray Roberts that's full of bass. So I haven't done any pond fishing in a long time, but I've been staring at the ponds around Richardson checking them out. So okay, so the first several videos we just reviewed the data, right? Basically the data of all the boats on sale at Bass Boat Central from September 1st through the end of the year, and then we've expanded that out through the 5th of 2020, January of 2024. And we've got a lot of data. We set out this video series to try to get some conclusions about selling boats, to figure out what's priced properly, what's not priced properly, and how you price a boat, and what accessories on a boat are worth, whether they add value or don't add value. And we're going to talk about that on the second slide here. But that's all in those first 4 videos. So if you haven't seen them, I'll put a link to the video play series right there. These are my high-level conclusions I took from all of that data. The first conclusion I took is package boats typically don't say much to similarly loaded custom boats. And what I mean by that is, sorry guys, I completely lost my train of thought. For sure, Nitro Rangers and Skeeters sell a lot of package boats. And what that means is there's a boat you can buy and it's got very minimal electronics on it. Generally speaking, they're manual jack plates, no forward facing sonar, and they do that to get them at a price point. They're not the upgraded wheels on the trailer. It's, let's call it plain Jane, right? And look, there's nothing wrong with that. You can take plain Jane to the dance, right, and have a good time. Most live scopers could beat me with a 9-inch graph on a boat with nothing else on it right now, based upon what I'm seeing in tournaments. But if you take that same boat and put a couple of big Garmins or a couple of big Humminbirds or a couple of big Lowrances on there, in other words, if you upgrade the electronics, if you add a hydraulic jack plate to it, when you start dressing those boats up like those other boats, they're going to be basically the same price. Now, having said that, there's a great, if you're a new boat guy, and I've had a lot of guys over the years, especially over the last couple of years, reach out to me and say, starting high school fishing, we've been fishing out of a 10 boat or out of a Lund V-bottom or off the pontoon boat. We want to get a bass boat. And the 2 things I tell them are, you can't substitute length, right? If I can have a 5-year-old 21-foot boat or a brand new 17-foot boat, I'm gonna buy the 21-foot boat. And you can't beat warranty on stuff. So for me, if your price point and you want to be in a new boat is to get a package boat, get the package new boat. You got warranty and you can buy a bigger boat. But if you're going to load them out, just load it out. Don't mess with the package boat. You're not going to save that many dollars. It's all in the accessories. Now, this was, again, one of the eye-opening things that I don't think anybody else has ever had this data or has examined this data to come up with this. But you saw in one of the earlier videos. First year, most of these boats, and there's a bunch of them, right? We looked at a whole bunch of 2023s that had hours on them. And on average, it was 96, so I just rounded it to 100 hours. And that is partially because 2 things. When you get a brand new boat, generally you want to fish more, and also, probably more so, a lot of the new boats for sale, 1-year-old boats, 1.5-year-old boats for sale, are pros boats. So those guys get a boat, they either pay a discounted price or, I'm going to say, a handful of them. And so actually we've not talked about this, but there's not a lot of guys anymore that get a free boat, right? I'm going to bet I'm going to bet there's not more than 150 guys in the U.S. who are getting a free boat anymore. I know 3 guys who were on the Elite Series at one point in the last 10 years, who none of which get a free boat anymore, and that was their deal. And then there's 2 levels of free boat. There are guys, the Kevin Van Dams of the world, who, and I don't know Kevin, but I'm assuming this is the case because I know guys who aren't Kevin Van Dam who this is the case. Part of their compensation package from their boat maker is to get a boat a year. And a number of them get 2 or 3 boats a year because it's cheaper for a boat manufacturer to give them a boat than it is for them to give them cash. So, and then below that is the guys, and this is one of the guys who's my buddy who was on the Elites for years. He got a boat at the beginning of the year and he turned the boat back in at the end of the year. And I asked him one time, I said, "You don't make any money off the boat?" He goes, "Well, actually I do, because the boat comes loaded, and what I'm able to do then is I get power poles at a discount, I get electronics at a discount, and I can buy a motor at a discount, I can get my trolling motors at a discount, and I buy all those other things and sell them separately as brand new. So although I get deals from all those manufacturers, I make my money by selling off the parts, and I just take the boat from the boat manufacturer with everything on it and then give it back to them with everything on it." So he was still able to make good money off of it and not worry about selling a boat every year. And then there are guys who get a great discount on a boat, and there's a lot more of those guys out there. I don't know the numbers. I've heard numbers from 10 to 50%, and who knows how many of those are actual and how many of those are guys full of bull that really don't know. Okay, sorry. Ken Smith rabbit hole. We've all been down with me before. But all of that was to say that I think the year 1 hours are skewed by so many of those pros boats being in this marketplace. I think there was a way to peel off just recreational fishermen and recreational tournament fishermen. Those numbers would come down, but it doesn't matter. The typical boat, if you're trying to buy a boat on pretty much any forum or anywhere in the United States, used boats, it's going to be about 100 hours is what you're going to see as the average. But then year 2, it only adds about 60 hours. So kind of back to that thesis, I think if we could pull the pros out, I think we would see year 1 more like 60 hours, because those boats are now in sort of non-pros hands. And then year 3 and beyond, that number drops all the way down to about 40 hours. So said another way, I would expect a 3-year-old boat to have about 200 hours on it, 4-year-old boat to maybe have 240 hours. And it actually continues to trend off a little bit. And I think that's probably because in general, guys who are really serious tournament fishermen tend to have newer boats and put more hours on boats. Other things we learned from the data, electronics carry forward value 50 to 60% really for the first couple of years. And so I'm saying if a boat has $10,000 of electronics on it, that's going to make a $5,000 to $6,000 difference in the used boat price for a 1, 2, or 3-year-old boat. And then it starts falling off, and it falls off, I think, intuitively for 2 reasons. They're not the newest and the best, so a guy doesn't want a 4-year-old unit, he wants a brand new unit. You don't want an LVS 32 transducer, you want an LVS 34 transducer, and you don't have warranty on those units. And then other sort of high-level things I saw, and I talked about this earlier a little bit, but Nitro Camus and Skeeter packages, seldom do guys add anything to those. Those are obvious guys who are buying a boat for a price point and most likely for a payment point, right? What's my monthly payment? And then one thing that jumped out at me that was just a weird statistic to me, kind of until I dove in it a little further, which I'll do in a minute, was the higher end boats overall had more and better electronics on them. And unless higher end's the wrong way to say that. You make your own conclusions on the next slide. But except for Vexus. So of the 8 Vexuses for sale, they only had 20 graphs, so about 2.5 graphs a piece. But I also noticed and I'll show you in a second, a lot of the Vexuses have one big 15 or 16 inch unit embedded in the dash or flush mounted in the dash. And so that's part of what kept the count down on Vexuses versus some of the other boats. And so I dug a little deeper into that. As I dug into the data, what I saw was, so again, of the 8 Vexuses, 20 total graphs, 2.5 which were 12 inches or bigger. But of all of the 20, all 20 were 2.5 inches or bigger. So what that number represents there, 2.5, 2.5. 2.5 is the average number of grafts on the left, 2.5 on the right, the denominator, if you will, if it was a formula. That is the number of units 12 inches or bigger. I thought this was interesting then. So reading down the page, the boats with the most average number of units on them are the Bass Cats at 3.1. And the most with the average number of big units on them are the Vexus at 2.5. Followed by Phoenix at 2.38, Ranger at 2.31, and then Triton down there at 2.18. And interestingly, remember some of those Tritons had a lot of hours on them, so probably makes sense. But you can see there, nothing really jumps out at me there other than maybe, let's see, who's the highest for Bass Cat's the highest for the number. The lowest is Skeeter at 2.51, followed by Triton at 2.54. And then the lowest number of big units is Nitro at 1.78 per, and Skeeter at 1.89. And that then caused me to think, okay, well, and I did this graph on the right because I started thinking to myself, if I'm looking at one of these groups of boats, I want to know when I'm looking at average prices, what kind of to expect. So with Bass Cat, three out of four of them have forward facing sonar. And basically all of them have a hydraulic jack plate. Bass Cat had the second highest number behind Vexus. In the Caymases, three out of four had forward facing sonar. Only about 65% have hydraulic jack plates. Phoenix, both pretty high numbers, 73/4 of each. Nitro, forward facing sonar was a lower number, not as low as Skeeter, but pretty far down there. And again, package boats, barely half of them, just over half of them had hydraulic jack plates. Ranger, pretty much like the other premium brands, I'm going to say, and I know that's going to make some guys mad, but boats that don't sell, well, anyway, 76% forward-facing sonar, 67% hydraulic jack plate. Skeeter, a lot of package boats, 65% forward-facing sonar, and only one of every three boats has a hydraulic jack plate. So a lot of manual jack plates on there, and that's about $1,000 upgrade, right? So that's it makes a difference in price at some level. Triton, 72% had forward-facing sonar and 82% have a hydraulic jack plate. And if you're going to spend the money, you're going to spend the money. So Vexus guys who bought Vexuses, every single boat for sale right now has forward-facing sonar, and all but one of them have a hydraulic jack plate. So those I thought were some interesting numbers. And then what I really was curious about, and so I did a Survey Monkey. Thank you for the 53 guys who responded to this. So if you've ever emailed me, I have your email address. And I did a Survey Monkey. I should have included a copy of it in here. But basically what it said was, thanks for, giving me your email address. And by the way, if you didn't get it and you've emailed me, it went to your junk email, because I had several guys find it in their junk email and email me and say, did you really send this? And yes, I really did. So sorry to clutter your junk email, but thank you for these. I think I sent 200 of these, if I remember. So I took the most 200 recent emails I've gotten and sent them out. So I said to everybody, from 1 to 10, okay, if you have this, does that add value? Does that not add value to what you pay for a boat? Does it not really make a difference, or does it definitely add value to buying a new boat? And these are your answers. And by the way, they don't surprise me at all. These are how I would have answered this too. So in column 1, it either adds value or makes it easier to sell. And if those of you who answered it, they'll tell you that's exactly how my survey read. I'd never done a Survey Monkey before. And what it said was higher end electronics make a difference, right? If you have Solexes versus Helixes, or Apexes versus Helixes, or the higher end, the 8600 series Garmins make a huge difference over the EchoMac units in a boat in the Garmins. Those make a difference when guys are looking at buying a boat. They will pay a premium for a boat that has that over the other stuff. Hydraulic jack plate. Everybody wants a hydraulic jack plate. They'll pay a little bit more for hydraulic jack plate than without one. Every one of them, 53 of 53 said warranty. I would want more warranty. And every one of them put it over at 10. I absolutely adds value. And then we had two different questions, forward facing sonar or 360. More wanted forward facing sonar, but all said they would add value to have forward facing sonar versus 360. What surprised me, the guys really didn't seem to care about very much. Number one is sea deck. You guys remember back from my bass boat search, I really wanted sea deck in my boat. Now, my new boat, may surprise you, has no sea deck in it. And it doesn't because my experience with seeing a lot of boats with sea deck in them is they're a little bit harder to keep clean. You got to really stay on top of it. And a lot of them show dog toenail scratches. And I got two 500-pound dogs that are in my boat all the time. And I don't want them scratching that stuff up. So I did not order sea deck in the boat. And in the Puma, they put that great big vent in the bottom of the floor, that drain. So it helps keep that dried out a little bit better. But guys really didn't give a crud about sea deck. I mean, on that kind of scale of 1 to 10, it fell in at about a 2. So nobody seemed to care. Radio was a 0. Not a single person cared whether they got a radio on a boat or not. And there was so you guys who answered it know there was a spot to write in space there, and they're like, "I got headphones. I don't want to be blasting music on the lake." I was surprised cover didn't rank higher. I think it ranked a 4 out of 10. Second console was a 2 out of 10. So there are more guys who don't want a second console than who do. A lot more, which bears out based upon the numbers we see. Most guys did not. I had a few guys who were vehement. They wanted lithiums, but the vast majority of guys, I think the number was 41. It was 5 or less. They did not care about having lithiums in the boat. Or say that another way, they weren't prepared to pay a premium to have lithium batteries in a boat. It's almost become to some degree an expectation in some boats, but guys weren't willing to pay a lot of extra money to have lithiums in the boat in a used boat versus a new boat. Nobody cared about trailer upgrades. Now, I should have broken this down in hindsight. I wish I'd have asked about a trailer step specifically, about upgraded wheels, about upgraded fenders, about light packages. I just said trailer upgrades, and in general, the number was pretty low. Guys don't care. They don't want to pay to have low profile tires on their boat trailer versus having regular, sidewall tires on their boat trailer. And then any less common options. And I listed in there stuff like the thing that goes around the back of the boat so the motor doesn't kick up and come back in the boat, and just, kind of various accessories, and nobody seemed to feel like any of those had any particularly large value for them. So that, if you're ordering a boat to sell a boat, that should tell you a lot, and that also tells you what other guys are valuing when you're shopping against a guy trying to sell a boat, or when you're trying to sell a boat against another guy, what you can say, I have this, and may add value to what you can price your boat at versus what's probably not going to make much of a difference in a competitive situation of selling your boat. The last thing is, and this to me was really interesting, probably next to the hours, the most interesting thing I saw in all of this. So I had enough boats here to have good sample sizes across all of them. So I started out with the adjusted average. So adjusted average price means I took a few things out that were really screwball prices on different boats. I didn't do much adjusting here, but if there was a huge outlier, I kind of pulled that out to give true average. So I took more of a medium than an average, if that makes sense. So of the 68 2023s out there, the average price was $78,300. 26 of those were new. And if you remember, if you haven't seen the video, go back and watch. There's the news have much lower accessories than the used, which is why the used are priced higher. But the 26 used 2023s were priced at $27,400 or $77,400. The 42 used 2023s, which used being motors with 6 hours or more, sold for $79,000, or they're asking $79,000. Everything below this is adjusted. Well, the average price for the 42 2022s is $72,000. That is 8.8% off of the 78,900 number, because that boat, the 2022, will have more similar accessories to the used boat than to the new boats, the 2023s. So that's what you can kind of expect the fall off to be once that boat turns from, in our case now, really 1 year to 2 years old, because we're now in 2024. And then in 2021s, we've still got a really good sample size, drops to 66,000, drops a little bit less, but not quite as much, from 8.8 to 8.3. The 17s, 62.2, still probably a big enough number, 17, to have a decent average price data set to make that conclusion. It falls off right at 6%. And now you see it drops. I think that 2019 number at 59 and only being 5% may be a function of there's not a lot of them for sale out there, so I really didn't get as good a data set, because you see then to the 2018 it jumped right back to a 6%ish number. I think really those numbers are probably 5.9, 5.5, 6% if I had enough data to get that. But those boats in 3, 4, 5 years start dropping off 5, 6%. The 17s start dropping off about 7.5%. If you think about it, in today's market, that 18 would really be one of the last boats that would still have motor warranty on it. And then the 2017's about 51, the 2016's about 45. And there's a big old typo there, guys. Is used. Sorry about that. But that really kind of paints the picture of kind of how those prices fall off. And that almost might give you a clue of when it's a good time to sell your boat. I really probably would sell, if I was sitting on a 2021 this year, I'd be really, really trying to sell it before next model year, because you're going to, well, let me think that through now. I think I just said that backwards. That boat's only going to fall another 6% the next year, so maybe you don't sell it. Maybe you sit on it another year, and the big fall offs are those 1 year and 2 year old boats falling 8+% per year, and then it kind of levels out about 5-6%. So that's the data. Thank you for staying with me through this. I hope that kind of ties a boat on this. I really wanted to do that with Basscat Lynx versus Ranger 520Rs versus Trident TRX 21s versus Camus CX20s, but there's just not enough data out there to do that. If there was a bigger data set, I'd love to do that, but that's the data we can use. And you guys know me, I'm geek enough that I'm only going to use data to do these videos. So thanks for tuning in. Again, Bigfoot Man, hanging out, waiting for you to call. If you're on some fish, you want somebody to go fishing with you, I'm a great back deck partner. I can show you how Dickie Newberry taught me to front deck a guy from the back deck. I'd be glad to do that to you. So thanks for tuning in, guys. The wind is howling outside. This front's blowing through. I hope y'all can't hear that, but I hope to be on the water soon. I'm going to try to get out and do a little hybrid fishing with Mr. Hawkins in the next couple of weeks, and I'd love to get up to Texoma and do a little smallmouth fishing if somebody's headed that way. And one of you guys reached out to me the other day, catching them on 10 killer on smallmouths. If anybody's around 10 killer and got a spot on their boat, I would gladly make that drive one weekend to come up and spend the day with you, do a little smallmouth fishing on 10 killer, because I have rods and reels, new ones, that I have not even put line on yet, because I haven't had a boat in 4 weeks, and I'm not going to have a boat for another 6 weeks. So, Kinsman fishing without a boat. Thanks for tuning in, guys.